The best way to connect with wealthy people is not by asking for something, not by trying to impress, and certainly not by talking about money. Napoleon Hill learned this directly from Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest and most influential men in history, who not only opened doors for Hill, but became his intellectual mentor. Carnegie taught something that almost no one understands. Wealthy people do not connect with those who need them. They connect with those who think like them. When Hill approached Andrew Carnegie, he had no money, no status, and no influence. But Carnegie saw something rare in him: strategic curiosity. Instead of asking how to make money, Hill asked how great men thought, decided, and saw the world. That was the first point of connection between the two. Carnegie believed that mindset comes before wealth, and that belief is what made him Hill's mentor. Andrew Carnegie taught that wealthy people instinctively distance themselves from those who arrive with requests, neediness, or urgency. That triggers a silent alarm. But they are drawn to those who arrive with ideas, intelligent questions, and long-term vision. Hill learned never to start a conversation talking about himself. He asked deep questions, observed patterns, and listened more than he spoke. This created immediate respect, something Carnegie valued deeply. Most people try to connect with the rich by talking about results, titles, or numbers. Carnegie warned Hill that this does not create connection, it creates competition. Wealthy people do not want to compete all the time. They want to talk to those who expand their vision, who see problems and solutions on a higher level. Hill began to talk about ideas, systems, impact, and the future, exactly as Carnegie did. Andrew Carnegie also taught that wealthy people value those who solve problems, not those who complain. When you approach carrying difficulties, you become a burden. When you approach carrying clarity, you become an asset. Hill observed that the richest men Carnegie knew surrounded themselves with people who made decisions simpler, not more confusing. Another direct lesson from Carnegie was about flattery. He said empty praise creates distance. Wealthy people perceive this immediately. Silent respect creates closeness. Hill learned never to praise obvious achievements. He commented on strategic decisions, recognized thinking patterns, and demonstrated deep understanding. This showed that he was playing the same mental game. Carnegie also taught that wealthy people connect with those who think in terms of building, not consuming. Hill spoke little about money and much about direction. Wealthy people are not defined by what they spend, but by what they build. When they realize someone shares this vision, the connection happens naturally. Another essential point Carnegie taught Hill was about timing. Wealthy people hate unnecessary interruptions, but they deeply value well-positioned conversations. Hill never forced access. He became useful before becoming close. Carnegie called this generating value before generating a bond. Andrew Carnegie also reinforced the importance of emotional posture. Wealthy people sense insecurity from a distance. If you approach with anxiety, it is noticed. Hill always maintained calm, clarity, and emotional neutrality. He did not need to impress. He was there to learn and contribute. Carnegie said emotional maturity opens doors that talent alone cannot. Another fundamental lesson was about boundaries. Carnegie believed that respecting limits is a form of power. Not insisting is social intelligence. When you show that you do not need that connection to feel validated, you become more interesting. Neediness repels. Self-sufficiency attracts. Hill applied this faithfully. Over time, Hill understood through Carnegie that true connection with wealthy people happens at the level of identity. They see themselves as builders, strategists, and decision-makers. When you begin to act, speak, and think at that level, you stop being seen as a spectator and start being seen as someone in the game. Andrew Carnegie never taught Hill to ask for opportunities. He taught him to create contexts, never to seek favors, but to offer perspective, never to appear important, but to be consistent. And consistency for Carnegie was the greatest social currency among the wealthy. Napoleon Hill did not gain access to the richest men in the world by chance. He gained access because Andrew Carnegie prepared him to think like them. He did not look like someone trying to climb. He looked like someone ready to walk alongside them. Wealthy people do not look for followers. They look for potential peers. And when you understand this, everything changes. Your language changes. Your posture changes. Your focus changes. And without realizing it, connections begin to happen. Not because you asked, but because you became someone worth talking to. This was the greatest lesson Andrew Carnegie left to Napoleon Hill, and it remains valid today. It is not money that connects wealthy people. It is mindset, posture, and internal alignment. That mindset Andrew Carnegie passed on to Napoleon Hill was not superficial. It was an internal filter. Carnegie believed that true access to power comes when someone stops thinking about immediate personal gain and starts thinking about impact, direction, and long-term construction. He said wealthy people quickly recognize who is only interested in the outcome and who is committed to the process. He began to observe how Carnegie behaved in social environments. Carnegie never dominated conversations. He never needed to be the center of attention. He spoke little, but when he spoke, he brought clarity. He did not react emotionally. He did not compete for status. This silent posture caused everyone around him to adjust their own behavior. Carnegie did not seek respect. He created an environment where respect arose naturally. This was one of Hill's greatest lessons. Wealthy people do not connect with those who try to impose themselves. They connect with those who are self-grounded. Those who do not need to prove anything. Those who do not seek external validation. Carnegie said the more someone tries to look important, the less important they truly are. And the more comfortable someone is with themselves, the more powerful they become. Hill realized that Carnegie chose very carefully who had access to his time. Not out of arrogance, but strategy. For Carnegie, time was the most valuable asset. He taught Hill that those who respect their own time teach others to respect it as well. Wealthy people notice this immediately. If you devalue yourself, they see it. If you respect yourself, they draw closer. Another fundamental point Carnegie passed on to Hill was the idea that wealthy people connect through vision, not need. They want to talk about what is being built, not about what is missing. Hill learned to always enter conversations bringing clarity, not requests. Ideas, not complaints. Direction, not confusion. Carnegie also warned Hill about something subtle but decisive. Wealthy people test. They observe reactions. They evaluate posture under pressure. It is not a formal test. It is silent. They observe whether you complain when something goes wrong, whether you lose composure, whether you change posture around someone more powerful. He'll learn that behavioral consistency was an invisible access code. Over time, Hill realized that the richest men he met did not connect through immediate interest, but through mental affinity. They looked for people who thought in terms of growth, not survival. People who spoke about solutions before problems. People who took responsibility, even when they did not have full control of the situation. Andrew Carnegie constantly reinforced that anyone who wants to connect with wealthy people must first abandon a scarcity mindset. Scarcity shows up as haste, anxiety, and comparison. Abundance shows up as calm, patience, and clarity. Hill understood that before approaching any powerful person, he needed to adjust his internal state. That was the greatest differentiator. Hill did not approach seeking approval. He approached seeking alignment. He did not want to be chosen. He wanted to be compatible. Carnegie said mental compatibility creates connections that no amount of money can buy. And that is how Hill gained access not only to Carnegie, but to dozens of other extremely wealthy and influential men. Not because he had something financial to offer, but because he knew how to listen, interpret, synthesize, and return clarity. Wealthy people value those who help them think better. In the end, Andrew Carnegie made it clear to Hill that the best way to connect with wealthy people is not to try to enter their circle. It is to become the kind of person who naturally belongs in that circle. When that happens, access stops being requested and becomes a consequence. That was the central lesson Carnegie left as mentor to Napoleon Hill. And it is the same lesson that remains valid today. If you want to connect with wealthy people, start by adjusting your mindset, your posture, your way of speaking, listening, and positioning yourself. Wealthy people do not look for those who admire them. They look for those who understand them. And when you understand this, you stop chasing connections. The right connections begin to recognize you.